welcome everyone who is joining us at the moment. We'll just give it another minute or so before we start.
I can see we've got a comment there saying, someone's saying, hi Maddie, great to see you again. So it's good to hear, of course, from our perspective that people are joining multiple times, and obviously you enjoyed the previous session
Nice
there, so
to
that's
see
good.
you as well. Always good when we have people who have seen it before. Cool, just another little bit. Okay, I'll start running through the introduction. So welcome everyone who's already here to our third CyberSafe Kiwis webinar. Today we'll be covering the topic of phishing and social engineering, so more about the human factor towards this kind of threat. I'll be your host, so I'll just introduce myself a little bit for those who don't know me. So I'm Maddie, and I've worked with ESET for 2 years now. I started here by doing support for home users, so some of you might recognize me if you've ever given us a call before. And I'm now the consumer business executive specializing in ESET here. I've got Brad who is joining me, and he is the ESET business manager, so he'll give a little introduction on himself as well.
Morning all. To be honest, not too much to add, other than that, obviously there's always a couple of us here just to keep an eye on questions and answers and that sort of thing, and answer any questions. Obviously, Maddie in charge of consumer definitely knows more than me about the ins and outs of the consumer stuff. But I normally sort of deal with the business side. So I know sometimes we have resellers on these calls or business users as well. So yeah, any questions, of course, feel more than free to ask them.
Thanks, Brad. So just continue through here. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, I'll explain, what is CyberSafe Kiwis. So it's an initiative that we've launched that's rooted in, educating people who are looking to get their smarts up a little bit with technology. It's open to anyone. So whether you're an ESET customer or user, or you're just interested in these presentations, they're all for helping people be safer online and be a little bit smarter through the three key qualities that we promote, which is to inform, educate, and therefore protect. So you can invite friends or family along, and anyone of any technical literacy level is welcome, of course. So if you happen to miss our last webinar, that's of course no problem. We record all of the sessions so you can watch it later. Last time we spoke a bit about the best cyber hygiene practices, getting into depth about what's too relaxed versus over paranoid, and how to be in the middle of that, so to be cyber smart about it. So today's follow-up episode will be covering the social engineering scams a little bit more in depth, since it's a very complicated and it is quite, it changes all the time, that kind of threat. So just in case anyone who does join us who's not familiar with ESET and, wondering what qualifies us to give these kinds of presentations, ESET is a cybersecurity solution provider that has been distributed in New Zealand for over 20 years. We have partners all the way from the top of the North Island all the way down to Invercargill, but we're headquartered here in Auckland. So we provide reliable and secure cybersecurity nationwide for all and any kind of environment. And to complement that, we do pride ourselves on having local Kiwi support that's just a phone call or email away. So if you attended our first webinar, you'll know the answer to this question, but New Zealand's one key threat has kept its rank year on year. And that is phishing, which is also a kind of social engineering scam. So phishing is over 50% of all threats that ESET blocks in New Zealand. But phishing isn't just a dodgy link or a file. It can also be fake invoices or quite literally just a written letter. So either threatening you, professing your love for you, or requiring you, to help them out. And you might wonder, what does that really have to do with cybersecurity? But because it's social engineering scams, they rely on manipulating you rather than messing with your technology. So why do they target people rather than just tech? So for one, people are easier to convince than technology. Tech has, many safeguards in place. They can, before an email or a text even reaches you, they can flash warnings or delete them. But once scammers get a hold of you through a phone call or to get you to respond to them, your only protection left is really to know when something doesn't feel quite right. So, knowing what is expected versus unexpected, that sort of thing. And digital protections can't really detect emotional manipulation or when there are legitimate apps being used with malicious intentions. And a lot of the time, these scams rely on legitimate systems to operate. So they can bypass security software that, since technically nothing malicious is happening with the code or the technology, it can be really hard to pick up and detect. And one of the main reasons, that money is sent from you as the victim to these scammers are often far more difficult, is because they're far more difficult to refund or reimburse. And like I mentioned, they use legitimate software. So, once that money is sent, it is really difficult. And calling them for a refund likely won't work either, as they're normally based overseas. And you may also be less likely to report them just due to feeling, shame or humiliated that you've been scammed in this way, which is really quite cruel on the victims themselves. The impact of these kinds of scams in New Zealand is huge. And although the older population are more likely to fall victim to them, they can affect all age groups and men and women equally. And it's not really because you might not understand how technology works, since it's mainly about manipulating you emotionally in order for financial gain. So these statistics on the screen now are from 2024 and show just how much money New Zealanders lost to social engineering scams. The average loss was over 3,000 New Zealand dollars. And these scams in total contribute to a loss of 0.6% of New Zealand's GDP, which, is $2.3 billion worth. And that's quite a significant number. And as I mentioned before, it's not just emails and texts or even calls. Social engineering scams take many forms, and this is why they can be really difficult to tackle and near impossible to prevent entirely, as they adapt quite quickly. And it's why multiple layers of, cybersecurity is best to prevent you from being on the receiving end of one, but so is education on how to spot them. So on this slide is a couple of examples of social engineering scams, and they're all very different from each other. So the fake pop-ups on the left here try to convince you that, you have a virus and to call the number to resolve it, when there's absolutely nothing wrong with your computer, and they'll charge you for the services of fixing the problem, or take your information and then sell that on to other scammers. These fake Facebook ads that you see in the middle here are generally to lead people to the fake site that you see on the left. So, no one would willingly click on a pop-up site, so they have to lure you in. And this is done by showing, fake news articles or fake clothing stores, all kinds of, methods of getting you to go to that site. Covered QR codes are less common, but they're definitely a real threat in public, especially stickered QR codes. You shouldn't scan a public QR code if there's normally a link that you can manually type in and visit instead. And if there is no link, it'd probably be best to avoid it entirely, as QR codes can install unwanted apps or files that are malicious. So as you can see, there's quite a wide variety there. And, let's sum that up. So what is a social engineering scam? So they're scams that use manipulation or deceit. And a key aspect is that it's designed to elicit an emotional response in you. So this can be fear, feeling sorry for someone, etc., but it's designed as a trick. It relies on abusing your general trust in order to scam, but because they come in so many different forms, they can be very difficult to prevent. And your best bet is just to have some healthy skepticism around them. So on the left here, as an example, it's a sponsored Facebook ad where someone is having a closing down sale, and the name of the business isn't really mentioned. So as you can see, unfortunately, I have to close my store. We've put our heart and soul into this brand. We're proud of everything we've achieved together. But it's really made to tug at your heartstrings. And this is likely due to the fact that it's a copy-paste message to repeat over multiple fake stores having a closing down sale as soon as the latest one is being outed as a scam. And they can even be legitimate presenting. For example, this is from my community Facebook page. And you might have come across a similar post if you are in those community groups. This one here is a car wash social engineering scam. And this has been making quite the rounds in New Zealand particularly. And they often start out by explaining how difficult business has been and that they really require the support of the community to keep it running. And some warning signs that you can look out for is if the poster hasn't ever said anything in the group previously, or oftentimes when you click to view the profile, they're in a totally different country. They can also lock the post so that no one else can comment and say that it's a scam, and tell people to message them personally for details. So these scams are quite difficult to shut down and spot, because if you go through with it, say you do, inquire this person to wash your car, someone might actually come and wash the car. However, they either do a very poor job or damage your car, and now the scammer has your details to pass on or sell to other scammers. But because they fulfilled the paid service, they can be a total hassle to shut down, and reporting them can be even trickier. So how does a general scam center, for these social engineering scams operate, and what is the main goal of these groups? We all know it's about making money, but it can evolve into very, very large operations. Jim Browning here is a UK-based scam stopper, or anti-scam YouTuber, who documents these sorts of scams on his YouTube channel. He's a highly technical guy, so he's able to get into these scammers' systems and mainly focuses on scam call operations. We'll be watching a short part of a video where he talks about and details how these operations function. So it's about, just 10 minutes, and it's a very good video just to give you some insight into, who these people are that run these operations. So I'll be turning off my camera and just going mute for a little bit as we watch this, but yeah, just stay tuned.
I'm Jim Browning. I'm known as a scam baiter, and I hack.
No sound for me either, Maddie. It started and then it stopped.
People get, and you instantly know.
Oh,
it's
hold on a second.
But I was getting.
That's working fine now.
I'm Jim
Oh,
Browning.
sorry about that, guys. We'll just restart that.
I hacked into scammers' CCTV, and I've managed to close down hundreds of scam call centers. This is how crime works. What I do is disrupt multi-million-dollar scams, the ringleaders exposed, and those people have an awful lot of money behind them. Why the silhouette? Well, it can be quite dangerous. You can imagine the type of things that they may decide to do to stop me. up until recently, had a normal day job. And sometimes I would work at home, and I would constantly get the same phone calls that I think most people get, and you instantly know it's a scam. But I was getting those so often that it was interrupting my normal work. I thought, I'm an engineer. I know about computers, know about networks. Maybe I can do something about this, or at least I want to find out what it is they're really after, and maybe report the people in the hope that I could stop the calls. I encountered Fairmont Travels back in 2019. They were operating a pop-up scam. I was browsing the internet. Suddenly this message pops up saying I've got a virus, and I had to call a number that locked my keyboard and mouse. And from experience, I know that that's a scam, but I deliberately called the number. They told me that they were a Microsoft affiliate and they needed access to my computer. But I have this little trick where if someone connects to my computer, I can reverse that connection, and that enables me to see their computer. And I was able to find out quite a lot of data and video and audio. Of course, the people on the end of the phone are primed to persuade you that you've got a computer problem. They will want you to, although they may not say the words, remote access to your computer, they will deliberately misdiagnose it. And to fix that problem, even though there's no problem, you would have to pay them. And it varies anywhere between maybe a few £100 up to a few £1,000. They will talk reasonably technical sounding language deliberately, but it's all just a script. Most people who are victims of that scam think that it's some friendly person trying to help them out, when in fact there was nothing wrong whatsoever. It's not just done once, they're scammed multiple times after that. The setup can be very tiny. You can run a scam call center out of a hotel room. You don't need particularly expensive computers to run a scam. And I think a lot of scammers know that. And what I typically find is they will run the oldest of old computers just because they're cheap. The average scam call center has between 10 and 20 people. Fairmont Travels, they set themselves up as a travel agency. They were running out of 2 buildings in a suburb of New Delhi. In those days, the front offices were all running legitimate work, but in literally the offices behind that building, they ran a scam operation. In fact, they used the same telephone system that they did for their legitimate work, but in the background, they would run this scam call center. So they had almost a perfect setup so that if the police ever did raid the places, they could always point the police to their legitimate work. They actually recorded their phone calls. And I was able to download over 70,000 scam phone calls from other operators in that room. It did help that I could see the supervisor's computer, so I could see the messages going from the people who actually operated the calls right back to the CEO of the company. So if you can think about it, any normal office organization, they had exactly that structure. The agents are incentivized on how much money they make, and because of that, they get a bonus at the end of the month. So they had supervisors who would tot up every agent's performance. And if you can make more than 30 successful calls, for example, you will make more money. I have seen in other operations that if you don't make your targets, typically you're out of the business completely. It was an operation that ran 24/7. They would have different shifts. So they would target Australia early in their daytime. It would move to Europe in the afternoons and evenings, and then at nighttime, it would be the USA. There was another person who was the accountant for the company. They knew which channel it came from, so what sort of scam operation they were running that day, which country it involved, which currency it involved, which payment gateway it involved. You would have all of the detail of that money going into huge spreadsheets. And of course, then that would be laundered elsewhere. So they had everything you would expect in a real office building. They had a HR department, quality assurance department. They would actually listen to some of the scam phone calls and feed back to the agents how they could run the scam better. I was able to see exactly what the CEO was doing because there was a CCTV camera in his office. It was the only one with audio. And he would spend a small portion of the day looking after his legitimate business, the travel agency business. But an awful long part of the day was spent making sure that the next type of scam was going to happen. But I did hear him discussing an Amazon scam and how he would set that up. Things like how they would process the money were discussed. Occasionally, I will encounter networks of money launderers, and if they're asking victims to transfer money, normally it will be to a bank account in their own country. And the reason for that is it's much, much more simple for money to go out of a victim account into a local bank account, a reasonably local bank account. But of course, it hasn't got back to the scammer yet, so there has to be a network of people who will take that initial transfer and move it between a number of countries. An average scam will have at least one money mule in the UK, one money mule at least in a different country other than India, typically Thailand, and between them they will move money between jurisdictions. I have seen Telegram and Skype groups specifically set up to allow money transfers to happen. So I know with Fairmart Technologies, I was able to see exactly where the money went when it came between the victims and right through to the company. So I could see as each payment was being made, there was an individual transaction in PayPal, which went to a company called Adrit Technologies. And Amit Chohan is the CEO of, or was the CEO of Adrit Technologies. So I got a direct payment link between the victims and his company. And I could tell that he was making at least tens of thousands of dollars per month, but it was closer to $100,000 a month. What they would get is average about $10,000 to $12,000 just from scams each day. But I've seen call centers which are upwards of 200 employees, and they can make more than $8 million a month. I have encountered a victim in the UK who had already lost £100,000 to scammers. People write to me as well to say that they have lost a lot more than that again. And again, there's practically nothing I can do once the money has already been stolen. Seeking out victims, criminals absolutely use social media. I'm on a Facebook group where scammers sell people's personal data, and there's very little enforcement for that. They will also sell things like credit card numbers. Those are sold openly on Facebook. I get to hear a lot of the calls that scammers make, and I've heard everything from teenagers right through to people in their 90s falling for these. The types of scam though that I look at are more likely to affect older people. Fairmart Travels were a little bit different from the average scam call center that I look at because they pay a third party to put adverts onto websites. And the advert itself is called a malvert, a malicious advert. It goes full screen, has a bit of very loud audio saying your computer is a virus, but most importantly, it has a phone number on it. The one way to tell whether it's a scam is a phone number. If you see a phone number on your screen, 100% of the time that is going to be a scam. Your antivirus will not ask you to call a phone number. They wait for victims to come to them, then they would simply get the inbound calls. That's how they seek out victims.
Okay, I'll just turn my camera back on. So yeah, as you can see, they can turn into giant conglomerates and they make a lot of money out of these social engineering scams. Jim Browning is a very great guy if you want to follow him, on YouTube and stuff. It's very fascinating, the stuff that he does. Another one is Pleasant Green, who also does educational content on scams by engaging with them and then seeing where they end up. So that could also save you from falling for them and just getting a better idea into how they operate. We're all familiar with with scams and what they might look like, but rarely do we see the other side of that and how it is being done and why it's being done. So because they come in so many different forms, it's kind of difficult to break down what their key elements are. However, the most common kinds of social engineering scams often follow this formula. So you are the victim and you encounter a problem. Now, this can be anything from a fake pop-up site to paying for something and never receiving your items from like a fake clothing scam site, anything to do with that. They then hope that you contact or call them. Only then does the real scam begin if they haven't already taken money from you, as they will try to harvest as many personal details from you as they can. Or they can remotely connect to the machine in order to get it themselves. So once they have done that, they'll either try to get more money out of you or sell your information to other scammers, and the cycle sort of repeats. There's a few stops in between that can prevent the scam from being successful. So I know I mentioned that cybersecurity products can have a difficult time detecting social engineering scams, but they're also evolving alongside it. So they're getting better at being able to detect, malicious and manipulating language within email content or websites through AI. They can also, when a site pops up and starts accessing your speakers to, blast out alarms or tell you there's a problem, they can also detect that. So they can stop or warn you from falling deeper into it. And this would be your first layer of defense. If the scam does bypass that, the next step is to never call or contact them directly. Always check with a more tech-savvy friend or your technician. If you're an ESET customer, you can also email us to make sure, if something looks quite suspicious. If you already have contacted them, remember that you can always hang up, or if they have remote access to the computer, you can disconnect the internet. Remember that social engineering scams rely on you playing along, or so that they can convince you to continue with their script. So you can back out of that at any time. A lot of people, are so worried, they stay on the line, they ask questions, that sort of thing. You can back out of it at any time, end the call, and do not reach out to them again once you've stopped contact. Do not answer the phone once they try to ring you back. Just check with a reputable source first or do some research. And if you were there for our last webinar, you'll remember this slide and this acronym. So you can always remember PHISH. So PHISH stands for pause, hover, identify, source, and hold. So what that means is remember that they're trying to rush you, slow down. Most attacks rely on a sense of urgency. So, saying there's a closing down sale, they're really struggling with business, that sort of thing. Just stop before you start engaging with that. Hover over links, don't click on it, read through carefully and check for any red flags. Is there not really any common sense? Is it making you feel guilty or worried? And source. So is it an expected sender? Do you know this person? Is it trusted? For that car wash example, normally the profile, they'll be listed as being in a different country. Why are they advertising car wash services in, Silverdale, New Zealand, if they're somewhere else? And, hold off, do some research and check. The end goal of a social engineering scam is always the same. They are trying to make you pay them in one form or another. So that can be direct bank transfers, that can be Bitcoin, gift cards, mailing the cash physically, or as you saw on that video, some people literally wrote out a check and held it up to the camera. So once the money is sent or taken, it's almost impossible to refund. So do not feel threatened or manipulated to pay if you are unsure. You should always check first if you feel uneasy and report it. So this is very crucial. A lot of people understandably can feel, shame or humiliated when they fall victim, especially to social engineering scams, and therefore they do not report it. But by reporting it, you are preventing other people from falling victim and helping shut down these operations a lot faster. We are only human, and the longer we are online, the more likely we are to fall victim to a scam. So if you encounter one, please remember to always report it. So we all hope that you can visit us again for some future webinars. This one was a little bit shorter, but because it was focusing on one main type of threat. We host these each month and each one of them has a different topic. So next time we'll be discussing the role of AI and automation in cybersecurity, which actually also ties into social engineering and how that has evolved, as well as viruses and many other forms of protection against that AI has helped fast pace. So again, everyone is welcome, whether you're an ESET customer or not. We want to make it easy and fun to learn these things for people of all cyber literacy levels. So if anyone has any questions at the moment, feel free to pop them in the chat now. For anyone who had issue viewing the video, remember that this will be recorded. I can even make sure that Ashton, if he sends the recording out with the webinar, I'll pop a link to that video that I was playing in here for you guys so that you can, take a look at that as well. So where's the best place to report scams? So CERT NZ is probably the best place to report it. And even if you just Google report scam NZ, there is a lot of government sites that also allow you to report it as well. If anyone's asking for a link to the previous webinar, keep in mind that anyone who's currently in chat will be sent the recording of it as well as, where to find them all. Yeah. So any other questions, guys, feel free to pop them in the chat.
One little thing I did just want to add is with those car wash scams, my understanding is that it's more sort of young people that are looking for specific types of cars they know are easy to steal. So if you say that you've got something that's hard to steal, they'll probably say, oh no, we shut the business down, or we're not going to come, sorry, we're not in that area. But if you say you've got something that's quite easy to steal, so no Toyota Aquas and Mazda Demios are particularly popular, they'll be, oh yeah, great, we'll come around instantly for a free quote sort of thing. And then of course, they steal your car at night time or something if it's not, in a garage or behind a gate or something. So that's probably their main sort of goal there, I guess. Yeah, is to try and actually steal a car.
There's any further questions, don't worry, guys. If you do have a question later on, remember that you can always email us as well. We're happy to always answer questions about anything like that too. So we'll just leave about a minute or so for some further questions. And sorry again if the video was buffering for you guys. I'll make sure to link that video for you so you can watch it. We only watched 10 minutes of it. It is about a 20-minute video that goes really in depth about, how they operate and everything like that. It's very fascinating. So be sure to include it for you guys. Thank you for everyone who's saying thank you. Very appreciate you guys being here. So for people who have not viewed the webinar, obtain links to view, yes, you can. They will be sent out, so don't worry about that. Also, guys, if you do just, want the website and things like that, it's on the screen at the moment. But you can also just Google Cyber Smart Kiwis and we're the first one that pops up. Right, amazing. So it doesn't seem like there's any further questions at this time, but thank you again so much for joining us. The next one will be just as interesting, and I'll be talking a little bit more on that one. So we hope to see you all there as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.